Welcome back, mtg-portal, to Shadows over Innistrad, Episode 9. I apologize that I've been out for 3 weeks. Computer's back up, programs seem to be running well, we haven't had any complications, so without further ado, let's crack into this a little bit late edition of our Shadows over Innistrad spoilers. I hope you enjoy. Alright, our first card up this evening is Jace, Unraveler of Secrets. For 3 colorless and 2 blue, you get to add 1 loyalty counter, you will scry 1, then draw a card. Basically, it's a Phyrexian arena that allows you to scry before drawing, and you lose no life. It does not get any better than that. You can subtract 2 loyalty counters and return target creature to its owner's hand, remove 8 loyalty counters, and this I think is the kicker. You get an emblem with whenever an opponent casts his or her first spell, each turn, counter that spell. It's a great board stall. It's really going to force your opponents to play smartly. It's going to give you an upper hand. If you can get that 8 loyalty counter kick off, this guy is just going to be board gridlock. It's absolutely phenomenal card. I'm excited to see Jace back in the set. I hope we pull a foil one for you right here on MTG-portal. I had wonderful luck with Jace Virus Prodigies in MTG Origins, so I'm really excited to see what we pull out of here. But it's just overall really cool to see this Planeswalker return, and this set's going to be a powerhouse. Alright, our next card up is Startled Awake. 2 colorless and 2 blue for a sorcery. Target opponent puts the top 13 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. That's just, oh god, I love it already. 3 colorless and 2 blue, put Startled Awake from your graveyard onto the battlefield transformed. Activate this ability only anytime you can cast a sorcery. So, once you force him to discard 13 cards, you then pay 3 colorless and 2 blue. You're going to bring it back on the battlefield flipped, and he does transform to Persistent Nightmare. He is a 1/1 with Skulk. This creature cannot be blocked by creatures with greater power, and whenever Persistent Nightmare deals combat damage to a player, return it to its owner's hand. This is an infinite mill for 13. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I love everything about this sorcery. It's so cool to see something like this. It flips to a creature. If they have big freaking creatures on the board, they can't do anything about it. You smack them for 1, you turn on your next turn, you mill them for another 13, smack them for 1, and you repeat. This guy is a powerhouse. I'm personally going to play it. I think it's going to see a lot of play. What do you guys think? I think Startled Awake is an amazing card. Next up, we have Welcome to the Fold. 2 colorless, 2 blue for another sorcery with Madness of X and 2 blue. For those who don't know what Madness is, if you discard this card, discard it into exile. When you do, cast it for its Madness cost or put it into your graveyard. Gain control of target creature if its toughness is 2 or less. If Welcome to the Fold's Madness cost was paid, instead gain control of that creature if its toughness is X or less. Very cool card, lots of versatility to it. I'm excited to see where it lands in the format and to see just what kind of decks get built around it. Next up, we have Vessel of Paramnesia. 1 colorless and a blue. It is an enchantment. You can pay a blue, sacrifice Vessel of Paramnesia. Target player puts the top 3 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard, and you draw a card. Kind of reminds me of a Mind Sculpt in a way. I don't know. It's a cool card. I don't know if it'll really see a lot of play, but it is definitely a unique card. And our next card up is Rattlechains. 1 colorless and a blue for a 2/1 creature spirit with flying and flash. When Rattlechains enters the battlefield, target spirit gains hexproof until end of turn. You may cast spirit spells as though they had flash. Our next card up is Darunu Corpse Trawler. 3 colorless and a blue for a 1/1 zombie. When Darunu Corpse Trawler enters the battlefield, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. You may pay 2 colorless and a black, and target zombie gains Death Touch till end of turn. For what the card does, he's a little too expensive in my honest opinion, but hey, I'm happy to see he's a zombie nonetheless. Our next card up in this set is Forgotten Creation. 3 colorless and 1 blue for a 3/3 zombie whore with Skulk. For those who don't know what Skulk is, it is this creature cannot be blocked by creatures with greater power, kind of like we touched base with that 1/1. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may discard all the cards in your hand. If you do, draw that many cards. I absolutely love this guy. This is Damia built into a zombie. Absolutely phenomenal card. Our last card for blue is Engulf the Shore. 3 colorless and a blue, instant speed. You may return to their owner's hands all creatures with toughness less or equal to the number of islands you control. Our first red card is Gyre Reach Bandit, 2 colorless and a red for a 3/2 human rogue werewolf with haste. At the beginning of each upkeep, if no spells were cast, last turn, transform Gyre Reach Bandit. And he does transform into Vilden Pack Alpha. He's a 4/3 werewolf. Whenever a werewolf enters the battlefield under your control, you may transform it. That's kind of cool that you immediately transform it. At the beginning of each upkeep, if a player casts 2 or more spells last turn, transform Vilden Pack Alpha. So he does have his strong points, but he's also got quite a few weak points. Next up, we have Avacyn's Judgment. At 1 colorless and a red, for sorcery speed, it does have Madness of X and 1 red. Again, if you discard this card, discard it into exile. When you do, cast it for its Madness cost, or put it into your graveyard. When you cast Avacyn's Judgment, it does deal 2 damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or players. If Avacyn's Judgment Madness cost was paid, it deals X damage divided as you choose among those creatures and or players instead. This is a great card if you have the mana to play it for its Madness cost. Other than that, in my opinion, it's nothing more than a shock at sorcery speed. I don't like it, but that's just me. Our next card up is Gold Knight Castigator. At 2 colorless and 2 red for a 4/9 Flying Angel with haste. If a source would deal damage to you, it deals double that damage to you instead. If a source would deal damage to Gold Knight Castigator, it deals double that damage to Gold Knight Castigator instead. At a 4/9 Flying Angel with haste, it is a powerhouse to contend with, but it does have its obvious downfall. Our next card up is Vessel of Volatility. At 1 colorless and a red for an enchantment, you may pay 1 colorless, 1 red, sacrifice Vessel of Volatility, and add 4 red mana to your mana pool. It's not a bad enchantment. I don't know that it's ever going to see play. There may be a way to build around it, to add to it. It would be great for burn, don't get me wrong, to be able to pop this. But I'm still paying 2 mana to gain 2 mana, so really in essence I'm not gaining a whole lot. I like the idea behind the card, I'm just not so sure that it's going to see play. Our next card up is Wolf of Devil's Breach. At 3 colorless and 2 red for a 5/5 elemental wolf. Whenever Wolf of Devil's Breach attacks, you may pay 1 colorless and a red. If you do, discard a card. If you do, Wolf of Devil's Breach deals damage to target creature or planeswalker equal to the discarded card's converted mana cost. Now, this could get interesting. I actually could see this in a black-red reanimate deck. I could see this card in quite a few different decks, because that is enabling me to pitch select cards, take care of what's on the board, and then turn around and bring them back. I wholeheartedly like Wolf of Devil's Breach. I encourage everyone to play this card. I think he's going to make an impact in the set and the format. Next up, we have Sin Prodder. At 2 colorless and a red, he is a 3/2 devil with menace. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library. Any opponent may have you put that card into your graveyard. If a player does, Sin Prodder deals damage to that player equal to that card's converted mana cost. Otherwise, put that card into your hand. I like this guy. I can see a lot of shenanigans coming into play with Sin Prodder. And next up, we have Scourge Wolf. At 2 red mana for a 2/2 Wolf Horror with First Strike and Delirium. Scourge Wolf has double strike as long as there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard. For a 2/2 for 2 with Delirium and First Strike, enabling him to then have double strike, this guy's an amazing card. Any quick deck, any quick red decks, should definitely be playing Scourge Wolf. I see him playing not only in Standard, but most likely in Legacy, Modern, and EDH. And next up, we have Falcon Wrath Gorger. At 1 red for a 2/1 Vampire Berserker. Each vampire creature card you own that isn't on the battlefield has Madness. The Madness cost is equal to its mana cost. For those who don't know what Madness does, if you discard a card with Madness, discard it into exile. When you do, cast it for its Madness cost or put it into your graveyard. This guy is nothing more than a vampire enabler. enabling you to cast all creatures for their mana cost, and if it is reasonable for that madness cost, this guy is ridiculous. Moving right along, we have Burn from Within. At an X and 1 red for a sorcery, Burn from Within deals X damage to target creature or player. If a creature is dealt damage this way, it loses indestructible until end of turn. If that creature would die this turn, exile it instead. And, I really like Burn from Within. I think it's going to see play, and I think it's a powerhouse. Next up, we have Ulrich's Kindred. At 2 colorless and a red for a 3/2 wolf with trample. Pay 3 colorless and a green, target attacking wolf or werewolf gains indestructible till end of turn. Moving right along to multicolored, we have Arlen Cord. At 2 colorless, a red and a green for a 3 loyalty planeswalker. You may add 1 loyalty counter, and until end of turn, up to 1 target creature gets +2/+2 and gains vigilance and haste. Or you may remove 0 loyalty counters and put a 2/2 green wolf creature token onto the battlefield. Then, following that token, you transform Arlen Cord. Arlen Cord does transform to Arlen, Embraced by the Moon. You may add a loyalty counter, and creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain trample till end of turn. You may remove 1 loyalty counter. Arlen, Embraced by the Moon, deals 3 damage to target creature or player, and then transform Arlen, Embraced by the Moon. Or you may remove 6 loyalty counters, and you get an emblem with creatures you control have haste, and tap this creature, and it deals damage equal to its power to target creature or player. Next up, we have the Gitrog monster, or doubly named the Death Frog, by those in my particular Magic the Gathering community. At 3 colorless, 1 black, and a green, he is a 6/6 legendary creature frog whore, aka the Death Frog. He does have Death Touch. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice the Gitrog monster unless you sacrifice a land. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Whenever 1 or more land cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere, you draw a card. Now, this guy can be an absolute powerhouse, and I think most of you understand why. Being able to pitch lands to draw cards at the same point in time, being able to play an additional land per turn makes the Gitrog monster a very, very powerful engine. And he is a 6/6, which is a pretty good sized creature for your opponents to deal with. Not only do I believe he's going to see play in Standard, but I know most definitely Reanimate decks are going to be looking at the Gitrog monster. Next up, we have Sigarda Heron's Grace. A 3 colorless, 1 green, and a white. She is a 4/5 legendary creature angel with flying. You and humans you control have hexproof. Pretty sweet, right? I think so. You may pay 2 colorless and exile a card from your graveyard. Put a 1/1 white human soldier creature token onto the battlefield. Next up, we have Anguished Unmaking. At 1 colorless, 1 white, and a black, instant speed. Exile target non-land permanent, and you lose 3 life. And next up, we have Fervored Visions. 1 colorless, 1 blue, and a red for an enchantment. At the beginning of each player's end step, that player draws a card. If the player is your opponent and has 4 or more cards in hand, Fervored Visions deals 2 damage to him or her. Next up, we have Prize of Maglum. Use 1 colorless, 1 blue, and a black for a 3/3 zombie. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, if it entered from your graveyard, i.e. Recursion, or you cast it from your graveyard, return Prize of Maglum from your graveyard to the battlefield, tapped at the beginning of the next end step. So basically, he never dies. It's a recursion zombie that never goes away. If you cast through the Madness ability, or you cast a zombie from recursion, this guy will come back to the battlefield to eat your opponent's brains. I like his style. Next up, we have Olivia Mobilized for War. 1 colorless, a black, and a red for a 3/3 legendary creature Vampire Knight. We're getting a lot of possible commanders in this block, and I'm really excited about that. This vampire has flying. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may discard a card. If you do, put a 1/1 counter on that creature. It gains haste until end of turn, and it becomes a vampire in addition to its other types. Next up, we have Altered Ego. At X, 2 colorless, of green, and a blue, it is a 0/0 shapeshifter. Altered Ego cannot be countered. You may have Altered Ego enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it enters with X additional 1/1 counters on it. This guy is a freaking powerhouse. Next up, we have Nahiri the Harbinger. At 2 colorless, a red and a white, she's a planeswalker that starts with 4 loyalty. You may add 2 loyalty to Nahiri the Harbinger, discard a card. If you do, draw a new card. To remove 2 loyalty counters, you get to exile target enchantment, tapped artifact, or tapped creature. And for -8 loyalty, you get to search your library for an artifact or creature card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. It gains haste and returns to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. Next up, we have Sorin Grim Nemesis. At 4 colorless, a white and a black, he starts out with 6 loyalty. You may add a loyalty counter, reveal the top card of your library, and put that card into your hand. Each opponent loses life equal to its converted mana cost. You may remove X, and Sorin Grim Nemesis deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker, and you gain X life. Or remove -9 loyalty and put a number of 1/1 black vampire knight creature tokens with lifelink onto the battlefield, equal to the highest life total among all players. Now, this card it's nasty. The -X loyalty enables you to protect Sorin. That is sweet. Revealing the top card, putting a card in your hand, and forcing your opponents to lose life equal to its converted mana cost is a very powerful +1 loyalty ability. And then, of course, putting a number of 1/1 black vampire knight creature tokens with lifelink. Now, if they had flying, I would say it's a little overpowered. The fact they don't balances it out to a degree, but if you're playing EDH and you drop this on an opponent who has 40, 60, or 80 life, and you have 80 1/1 black vampire knight creature tokens, I think it's all fairly safe to say they're in trouble. Overall, this is a pretty sweet planeswalker. And next up, we have Invocation of Saint Traft. It is 1 colorless, a white and blue for a enchantment aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature has, whenever this creature attacks, put a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. Exile that token at end of combat. Moving right along into green, we have Deathcap Cultivator. 1 colorless and a green for a 2/1 human druid. You may tap him to add black or green to your mana pool. He does have Delirium. Deathcap Cultivator has Death Touch as long as there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard. For Reanimates and many other black and green decks, this is a wonderful card to have. He's a mana producer, he's got Delirium, he's quick, he's easy to sacrifice, and he's cheap to bring back. Overall, I like him a lot. Next up, we have Vessel of Narcensi. 1 green for an enchantment that enables you to pay 1 colorless and a green, sacrifice Vessel of Narcensi, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may put an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker card from among them into your hand, and the rest into your graveyard. Next up, we have Ulvenwald Hydra. At 4 colorless and 2 green, he is a star Hydra with reach. Ulvenwald's Hydra, his power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. When Ulvenwald Hydra enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a land card, put it on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. All in all, for 6 mana, he can be a powerhouse late game. I like him a lot. Next up, we have Seasons Past. At 4 colorless and 2 green, it's a sorcery speed. Return any number of cards with different converted mana costs from your graveyard to your hand. Put Seasons Past on the bottom of its owner's library. Next up, we have Second Harvest. At 2 colorless and 2 green for instant speed. For each token you control, put a token on the battlefield that's a copy of that permanent. Next up, we have Silver Fur Partisan. A 2 colorless and a green for a 2/2 wolf with trample. Whenever a wolf or werewolf you control becomes the target of an instant or sorcery spell, put a 2/2 green wolf creature token onto the battlefield. Next up, we have Crippleth Right. 1 colorless and a green for an enchantment. Creatures you control have tapped this creature, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Next up, we have Transverse the Ulvenwald. It's 1 green for a sorcery speed. Search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Then shuffle your library. It also has Delirium. If there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, instead, search your library for a creature or land card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Then shuffle your library. Moving right along to white, our first card up is Angel of Deliverance. At 6 colorless and 2 white, she is a 6/6 flying angel with Delirium. Whenever Angel of Deliverance deals damage, if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, exile target creature an opponent controls. Next up, we have Always Watching. At 1 colorless and 2 white, it is an enchantment. Non-token creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Vigilance. And next up, we have Thalia's Lieutenant, coming in at 1 colorless and white for a 1/1 human soldier. When Thalia's Lieutenant enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on each other human you control. Whenever another human enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on Thalia's Lieutenants. Next up, we have Descend Upon the Sinful. 4 colorless and 2 white for a sorcery. It enables you to exile all creatures. It also has Delirium. Put a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying onto the battlefield if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard. And next up, we have Vessel of Ephemia. 1 colorless and a white for an enchantment. Pay 2 colorless and a white, sacrifice Vessel of Ephemia. Put 2 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying onto the battlefield. Next up, we have Hanweir Militia Captain. 1 colorless and a white for a 2/2 human soldier. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 4 or more creatures, transform Hanweir Militia Captain. He then transforms to Westvale Cult Leader. It is a star human cleric. Westvale Cult Leader's power and toughness are each equal to the number of creatures you control. At the beginning of your end step, put a 1/1 white and black human cleric creature token onto the battlefield. Next up, we have Odric, Lunarch Marshal. 3 colorless and a white for a 3/3 human soldier. At the beginning of each combat, creatures you control gain first strike until end of turn. If a creature you control has first strike, the same is true for flying, death touch, double strike, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, skulk, trample, and vigilance. Oh dear God, that guy is a beat stick. Next up, we have, moving right along to black, from Under the Floorboards. 3 colorless and 2 black for a sorcery. Put 3 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield tapped, and you gain 3 life. If from Under the Floorboards a madness cost was paid, instead put X of those tokens onto the battlefield tapped, and you gain X life. His madness cost is X into black. If you discard this card, discard it into exile. When you do, cast it for its madness cost, or put it into your graveyard. Next up, we have Diregraph Colossus. 2 colorless and a black for a 2/2 zombie giant. Diregraph Colossus enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it for each zombie card in your graveyard. Whenever you cast a zombie spell, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield tapped. Not a bad way to go about it. Next up, we have Ever After. 4 colorless and 2 black for a sorcery. Return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Each of those creatures is a black zombie in addition to its other colors and types. Put Ever After on the bottom of its owner's library. I really like this card, especially for recursion. Next up, we have Vessel Malignity. 1 colorless and a black for an enchantment. You may pay 1 colorless and a black, sacrifice Vessel Malignity. Target opponent exiles 2 cards from his or her hand. You may activate this ability only anytime you can cast a sorcery. Next up, we have Asylum Visitor. 1 colorless and a black for a 3/1 vampire wizard. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, if that player has no cards in hand, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. It also has a madness of 1 colorless and 1 black. If you discard this card, discard it into exile. When you do, cast it for its madness cost or put it into its graveyard. And our last card for episode 9 of Shadows over Innistrad spoilers is Behold the Beyond. 5 colorless and 2 black for a sorcery. You may discard your hand, search your library for 3 cards and put those cards into your hand, and then shuffle your library. Pre-release for Shadows over Innistrad is the 2nd and 3rd of next month, so please make sure that you guys are set for April's pre-release. We'll have a video coming up on some things you guys can do to prepare for that as well. As always, thank you for watching MTG Portal. Thank you for subscribing. If you enjoyed this content, please leave me a thumbs up and a comment down below. If you didn't, for whatever reason, go ahead and leave me a thumbs down and also drop a comment so we know what we can do better. If you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please smash the subscribe button above. It helps out more than you know. Thank you for watching. Thank you for checking us out. We'll talk to you all soon. Take care.